Mr. A here, saying, how y'all doing?
Yo! Are you ready to rumble? Or should I say tumble? Cause I don't stumble, I bumble like a Gregor Brian combo. Standing on the ground, flat feet firm, killing worms and germs, and I'm doing it on my
Welcome
terms.
to the Rumble. We are back, and we have missed each and every one of you, and I cannot wait till we get a chance to talk some more about it. And we have got some amazing topics coming up for you, and we've once again have Brent that is going to be joining us. He is not quite here yet, but we're looking forward to having him. Yeah, everywhere the guy goes, he's got all kinds of applause that comes in. Working the boards for us, as always, is the beautiful Donna Lavelle.
Hello.
It is so nice to be back at the Rumble. I cannot tell you the last time that we did it. So this is our second show. Brent will be back in just a second.
Yep.
But while we're waiting on him, we will. I'll just fill some time here and kind of talk about sort of the last show. I believe that he's in the waiting room waiting on approval right now. So if you can approve him to come back in, that'd be awesome.
Doing that, and it doesn't make a noise.
Well, you know, Brent has joined us. Say hi to everybody, Brent. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on?
Man, I was just telling everybody how much fun the last show that we did and how excited we are to be back to do this again. It was funny. Brent and I actually, as soon as the show was over, absolutely, we kind of went down and unpacked it. We kind of talked about it. There were some things that we wanted to do a little bit different. So while we're working it, it's still going to be three rounds. We're going to have 3 rounds. We're going to service this in 3 rounds. We've got some really cool topics. I'm going to throw it to Donna so we can talk about some of the different things that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, first, let me give you the rules. Be respectful, no hitting below the belt, which includes calling out specific adjusters or contractors. And that's it. Just don't be a jerk.
We'll do our best. I'm not making any promises there. But that's why we have a disqualification
Try
penalty.
not to cuss either, because that's really hard on me as the editor of all this stuff. So,
Okay, I'll try not to
Appreciate
cuss.
Okay, so today, round 1, we're going to be talking about the misuse of engineers' reports, and I would like to introduce our fighters.
Okay.
In this corner is Brent, the Beast from the East, Hooper.
That's a long middle name.
We try so hard.
I know.
We try so hard.
And this corner is Jeremy, the Mouth of the South, Lavelle.
Yeah, there you go, everybody. Put your hands together. That's all right. There we go. I am dancing like you guys would not know right now. I'm actually cabbage patching for everyone. Thank God this is an audio podcast. No one actually has to watch me cabbage patch, right?
So we have a term for misuse of engineers' reports. We call it engineer blankery.
Blankery. Yeah. Beepery, bleepery. Yeah.
Or, so in short, it's EF or EFHO, which is engineer blankery of the highest order.
Of the
highest BS.
Cannot deal with that. And you know what? Hang on a second. I'm going to check my gloves. I'm going to make sure my mouthpiece is in and get ready, because as soon as I hear that bell, I'm ready to come out swinging, because this is a big one for me.
Okay, let's go.
It's a good one.
Man, you know what? So throughout my tenure, Brent, and I just want to take this one first, and I hope that's okay with you. I'm going to start here because I cannot believe how many. The first thing I can't believe, and hang on a second, I digress. I'm going to walk this back. For those of you who have not had the distinct pleasure of inspecting a loss, photographing damages, and then presenting documentation to the carrier, only to have them send out an engineer to basically say that you're wrong, that this is not due to the cause of loss that you had. And I can tell because there was, they'll throw whatever opinion out. And basically, if there is any sort of conceivable other explanation, that's what they say that it is. And you'll hear all kinds of things like, that's not hail damage, that's probably due to wear and tear, thermal cracking, and they'll have all of this terminology that sounds really, really smart. And then they throw it out, but as you read it, you begin to understand that there's a lot of contradictions in there, and I have no idea, first of all, why you would send out an engineer to determine what is and what isn't storm damage. Do you know what I'm saying, Brent?
That seems like what he's way above that pay grade.
I mean, this is what you spend all the money at Texas A&M to get this engineering degree, is to go out and look at roofs.
At hail.
Yeah. Well, it is funny because, then for the record, Donna, I heard the rules loud and clear, very familiar, but this particular topic impassions me, so I'm just going to apologize in advance.
Okay, well, you
very
mark them. When
difficult.
you see 'em, you mark them and just send me a list.
It's going to be difficult for me to make it through without dropping some expletives, but nonetheless, it's really interesting. It's really interesting from 100,000 foot view. When we're talking about like exterior claims and shit like that, wind, hail, storm damage, and you kind of get to this particular point, this impasse, and going the engineer route, it almost seems reflexive, if that makes sense, where it's like, oh, we disagree. So the next step in the process is we're going to get Eddie Engineer out here and then it's like the pause, and then I'll let you kind of go back into it, Jeremy, but it's like, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's dissonant. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's like, we're on our third inspection. You guys have already opened up coverage, but now we got to bring out Eddie Engineer for what fucking reason? It's very, like, what's the point? Why? What is this dude coming out here for? Like, we already know there's damage. We've had a half a dozen people agree that there's effing damage. Like, so that's where I get really heated, because again, it seems reflexive. There doesn't really seem to be any rationale to it outside of what we all know to be that extra layer of and I'm holding up the proverbial air quotes. We're going to get an expert out here so the carrier can pretend that they've, hired an expert and pretend that their goal is to get it right. And truth be told, they're hiring some putts that learn nothing in engineering school about shingles or siding or what the fuck wind damage looks like. But they're going to come out and rubber stamp a report that like you said, is pretty much written to say we disagree, with pseudoscience as the foundation of pretty much their findings. So that's where I get real heated, and I'll let you go from there. That's where I get real.
Well, me too. Okay, because I worked, as you well know, Brent and Donna, as you well know, I worked on the carrier side for a lot of years. And well, hang on, before we boo them, I am a product of the carrier, whether you like it or not. I am absolutely 100% a product of the carrier, because I went through carrier training, and I will tell you, those people, carriers, know how to educate. Most of them have a very, very good education division within their organization. And I can speak specifically about the carrier that I worked most closely with. I helped them develop, in this case, it was more developed sales curriculum than it was sort of claims handling or process training. It was more small business development, sales curriculum that I worked with him on. But I'm telling you, the way that they break it down and the way that they and the people they get to teach it, I mean, some of the best teachers I've ever seen in my life have been at a carrier. I mean, as far as dynamic, that gets you engaged, that know how, and so and I applaud carriers on their education program that they have out there. But and as a product of the carrier, I want to say this, is that I trusted them a lot, and when I was out there and I had a true structural issue, if I had a true structural issue, I would call an engineer, because we had a 2-story wall deflected by wind that is now the door, the sliding door won't close, and like there's more going on here, especially with the size of the wall. And this is my first experience with an engineer. We called an engineer out. He did it. He wrote a protocol. I wrote an estimate based on that protocol, and it was all said and done, good and fine. And that in that situation, that's where I believe an engineer would be needed, is when you're dealing with something more than facade finishes, So I'm talking drywall, siding, flooring, that kind of thing. You're not talking about the bones of the house. You're talking about the skin of it at this point in time. Those are damages that we're all really comfortable with addressing as adjusters by and large. Where we get more uncomfortable or where we have no expertise is when it gets into the structural integrity of any given structure, okay? And so you call out an engineer to help make sure that you address everything that is going on in this situation. Brent.
If I may, I just want to accent what this thing that you're describing, this is exactly, at least in my mind, and it sounds like we agree on this is exactly what a freaking engineer's for. And for the millions of listeners, like, this is exactly what we're not talking about.
This is this is not what I'm talking about. And so I had this, and so when I basically kind of began to cycle out of the carrier side of claims handling and became more on the side of the production of the rebuild. So I was working with contractors. They would send out an engineer, and I remember telling the owner of the roofing company that once they send out an engineer, that's pretty much it. That's going to be what it's going to be, defeating that, and that's going to. And I honestly believe that the engineer was going to come back with something that I felt to be true and honest. And in this particular case, when I was working in Florida for Hurricane Michael, this engineer did not come back with, and I was like, this guy's out of his mind. I can't believe it. And I had no idea how to beat it. And then fast forward to the pandemic. Okay, so this is where I believe that the misuse really began. They started hiring engineer firms because the Seek Now and the Hancock guys, they were not licensed adjusters, and they couldn't ask licensed adjusters to go out there, I guess, so they would just go get engineers, and the engineers would make a determination on the causation of the loss and the extent of the loss. And that's where it started, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't used for that prior to that, but that's been my experience is when they started coming out. And I'm like, why on earth would an engineer want to come weigh in on whether or not the damage to a roof was created by hail? I don't have any problem with them speaking towards the causation of it all, but what it was used for, and this is where I think the error began, is that for whatever reason, when it comes to especially roofs, the engineers were looking for plausible deniability. What is their plausible deniability? And then they take a degree and a license number in an engineer and attack, and it's like this plausible deniability also comes with an expert opinion. And all of the reports that I've read over time, it is really what it is. It's just their opinion. They rarely take any sort of scientific data other than what you and I could go pull off of a hail trace report or off of an AccuWeather report, Brent. They're not pulling any sort of real scientific data as it pertains to the history of the building and different sort of trauma that it may have suffered and other things, other sort of events that may have occurred. They don't go to the city. They don't look at any permitting. They just simply write the same damn opinion that you and I have. They use the same sort of resources, and then they just conveniently have this entire other conclusion, and they slap their degree behind it, and your claim is denied.
Yep.
All in and all done.
Yep.
Thanks for playing.
Exactly. Canonized. And so with that being said, it's like, again, you brought up something that also, when you're dealing with EF or EFHO, it is incessantly frustrating how boilerplate these reports are. Right?
Including the copy and paste errors.
It's like, the fact that, and I probably read, who knows, 2 a week, 2 or 3 a week. It's really unfortunate. And by the way, I say this sincerely. I think it's degrading to the profession of engineers. But again, that's a conversation for a different day.
I completely agree with
you. It totally cheapens what they do. I mean, again, these are super smart people that have, really expensive pieces of paper hanging on their wall, something they should be proud of. Them going out and writing these boilerplate garbage reports is, again, They probably disagree, but it's just an outsider, on the sideline looking at the plays going on the field. I'm like, that's just such garbage. Anyway, I digress. So the boilerplate reports. I think it is incessantly frustrating when you go through a claims process and you get to this point where, again, in the context of like a quintessential exterior claim, we're going to send out an engineer. And before you even get to the meeting, you're like, here we fucking go. Like, I think that's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like, I think, you go out, you go through the motions, you do the thing, and whether you're a public adjuster, contractor, whatever the scenario is, if you've been through it 20 times, you've been through it 1,000 times. I'm probably closer to that latter number. And it's just like, that there's about a 9.5% chance out of 10 that you're going to get some bullshit report back, a report that you've read 100 times. And that's wild to me. It's flagrant, and it gets me butthurt. that's my word tonight.
I completely agree. The point is that I realize that these guys have degrees, Brent, and they went to school and they learned a lot more complicated stuff than I did in school.
Right.
They know a lot more complicated stuff, but they also know how to ride a bicycle. Do you know? And basically, whatever knowledge they're drawing from is out of the same bucket of how do I ride a bicycle as they're pulling from that same kind of bucket, because they're not really using sort of any of their skill set as an engineer as it pertains to the damage to this. Moreover, what I would want to know is why are you taking the job, really and truly? And then why are you not out there just confirming, that this engine, that yes, this house got hit by hail. It is likely that hail caused this damage. It's also likely other things caused it. Here are some other things that could have caused it, but I can't rule out hail. But they don't say that.
So yes, and you know what? Short of you and I sitting here and bitching and complaining about this, I want to give a credit really quick to Matt Mulholland. I know that he's done extensive coursework on this and training and all of that. But short of us sitting here and venting and our listeners just sort of shaking their head and they understand where we're coming from, I think it might be worth us taking a part of this segment to talk about some ways to, and I'm going to steal your shtick, Jeremy, some ways, some strategies to prepare yourself for these inspections and sort of kind of retain some control of the narrative. Because I know that the first couple times that I went out on site and I'm meeting with some guy or gal from Donan or, whatever, pick an ABC engineering firm, the first couple times you get kicked in the chest, you're like, well, that really sucked. And then you start sharpening your pencil a little bit. And, my point is, I think it would be a good idea for us to take a couple minutes to talk about some of our best practices in terms of, how to avoid some of the engineer effery that goes on. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do in our capacity to hold them accountable and perhaps put them on notice that the other 30 reports that they wrote this month, they're not going to fly with us. You know what I'm saying? You want to do that, or you want to go down that road for a couple minutes?
The next segment here that we'll get into, I just want to wrap up what you're saying. That's actually what I believe round two is. Round two is, yes. What is round two, Donna? Yeah. What do we have it on there? I think it's how to deal. What do you do once you get one? And I do want to unpack that.
Okay.
I mean, because that's going to be, that's coming up in a future round. But the idea here is, guys, is that it is what I want to leave you with. All of this is understand that this happens to all of us, and there are methods that we will get into here in just a second on how to deal with and handle those things. So I guess that is the end of the round.
I wanted to add something real quick. I think that if a lawsuit that involved one of those reports where the report was proven to be a false report, that would put into question every single report that engineer has ever written.
Right. And there's a lot of resources out there. But what I want to talk to you about right now, honestly, is There is a software package out there that is great for helping manage your business. And when choosing someone to help you with your online marketing, make sure you go with someone that has years of experience. My good friend Sallie.Brigance at Thrive has over 20 years of digital marketing experience, and she can build you a beautiful 15-page, sleek, interactive website, post on your social media platforms multiple times a week. That she can make a video for you. She can help you manage with they have a CRM to help you manage and maintain and nurture your clients, text and email marketing, review generation, business listing on 60 plus search engines, including 3 voice networks, appointment scheduling, estimates, invoices, payment processing.
We use all of it.
So much more. And we at Remedy Claims actually use this. We love Thrive. And Sallie will even also create a page for you on Google or Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. If you already have these pages, she'll help you optimize them. Give Sallie.Brigance a call at Thrive Media. And if you would like to get a hold of her, we'll go ahead and drop her contact number down in the comments if you would like that. If you're in a place where you can write it down right now, let me see if I can get her phone number for you. I don't have her phone number, but we will make sure that we have that in the comments for you if you want to reach out to her. Please tell them that Jeremy and Donna with Pain of the Claim sent you over there. So anyway, so back to round 2. What is round 2, Donna?
Oh, also go to our website. She designed our website.
Oh, yeah, you can check out remedyclaims.com. They are the ones that handled our website. And I'm going to tell you from a personal experience, them handling my calendar, they can take payments, they can handle invoices, they can do there's all sorts of things that they do. It is really sort of like an employee. You know what I mean? It takes some time to set it up.
Business, and it does take the place of an employee, definitely.
It does. You got to take, just like with any employee, you got to train it and get them set up for success. But once that's done, it is an amazing tool, and I highly recommend it.
As a friend and a small business owner myself, yes, their work product is awesome. Yes. I've had the pleasure of seeing how some of the stuff is set up at Remedy Claims, and if you take a look at their website, I mean, it's beautiful. It's freaking awesome. So I figured I'd plug it too because I've seen the product. I mean, it's good stuff.
Cool.
So
absolutely.
All right. So round 2, we're going to talk about how to handle a bad engineer's report.
There's a couple of resources out there. I think I want to rip off not rip off. I want to let you know what I got. I don't want to rip them off. I just want to rip off a few ideas. I want to give a few ideas here. Good grief, man! I
relay information. That's all you're doing.
I cannot. I just want to relay information. That's all I'm trying to do. First and foremost, I highly recommend. Matt Mulholland, I hope you're listening to this podcast at some point in time because you're the reason we act so crazy up here. But speaking of Matt Mulholland, he has got a great course. I have not had the opportunity to take it, but I have talked to several people that have. And basically the term that I hear most common is game changer.
Yeah.
So look into that. And then the next thing that I would point out is I would look into the APA, which is the American Policyholders Association, which is a nonprofit organization that prosecutes or goes after carrier fraud. Okay, and they've got a tool on their website, which is the AmericanPolicyholder.com. We'll drop that in the comments below as well, so that you can get a link to that. But they're a nonprofit organization that desperately needs support. And if you're looking for a good place to give some charitable donations to, especially this close to we're recording this at the end of the year. It may be after the first of the year, but I'm pretty sure these organizations need money in the beginning of the year, not just not at the end of the year. But either way, the APA has got a tool on there where you can upload your engineer's report, and it will go through and it will find the discrepancies, the cut and paste errors, and all of these kind of things. And the reason the report is so critical is because it's in writing and it's stamped. And so those things become it's a lot more than just a perfunctory email that you fired off because you were upset one point in time. These documents become official.
They become discovery.
Yeah, they become discovery, and they're used to make coverage decisions. And so those are the two things. Those are the first two things that I would recommend that you do if you're dealing with a difficult engineer's report or you're up against a bad engineer's report. Those two resources are really good as far as educating yourself on how to handle it and then getting some help for it. But there are a couple of different things that I do. But before I get into what I do, Brent, how do you kind of tackle a bad engineer's report?
All right. So I jotted a couple things down, and I think it's really important to delineate some of or categorize some things here. Just because an engineer gets involved, not by your choosing, it doesn't mean that the claim is going to the dumpster and that the carrier is being, they're not acting in good faith. I think that's really important, because the first segment, we're bitching and moaning about engineers and the misuse of them. And I think that's the operative word, the misuse, right? But as we're talking about the reports and the interactions, I think it's important, or it's mission critical, to just reiterate that not every report is bad, right?
Right.
And there's a difference between a perfunctory report and a report that just isn't favorable. Like that's important,
Yeah, right.
Just because you don't like what's in it doesn't mean that the engineer is a liar and needs to be taken outside behind the barn and given a lashing, right? So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward here. But how I handle I'll just say an engineer report, not even necessarily a bad one. One of the first things I wrote down, which is so stupidly obvious and overly simplistic, is you got to read it. And I don't mean read it on your cell phone. I mean, and everybody learns differently and all that, but you need to read it. You need to break it down. And perhaps the term I'm looking for is actively read it. As you're going through, take notes. Write down your questions as you're going through it. Depending on the type of claim, I know that the most common place for, when we get pissed off are these exterior claims. But, if they use some sort of jargon or vernacular that you don't understand, look it up. So that's my first, and I'll stop there for now. I got a couple other points, but I want to pass the ball back to you. But that's my first little tip is just take the time and just read the thing.
Brent, as soon as you said read it, I actually picked up my pen and I wrote it down right here on my run sheet. I said read it, and then what you're reading for is you're actually not just trying to read it for the sake of checking a box to say I read it. I'm reading it to see what their data is.
You're not reading it for affirmation, you're reading it for information.
I am truly trying to get the
information.
Said, How did you assemble this opinion? What is this opinion built up of? What do you have behind you? I mean, what do you have behind you that supports what you're telling me? Please show me one shred of evidence that supports what you're saying. And I'm going to pick a particular engineer report right now that I dealt with that happens to be in Oklahoma, okay? And basically what it was is it was a fire, Brent. It was a large fire. It was a large home that had a great big huge driveway. And the homeowner at the time of the fire instinctively thought to take a picture of the fire truck sitting in his driveway. And I don't think he ever thought he would ever go back and look at that thing ever again.
He didn't think he would ever need that freaking picture.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he never. I mean, it was probably like, guess what I did last night, and you send him that picture or whatever.
Exactly.
You're thinking you're going to get a picture of a concert, and what you got is a picture of, oh my God, my my house burned down. This guy's house burned down, and it was a terrible situation. And kind of as we were going through the process, my client noticed that his driveway was busted, and I said, you know what? That's really common. In fact, Brent, you and I worked a fire, I think in Pennsylvania, where they had driveway damage that we actually ended up getting covered, right? Well, the carrier in this situation sent out an engineer, and the engineer came back with a finding that there was ground shifting that caused these cracks.
Yep.
And in his report, do you know why? You know what his data was for this driveway in Oklahoma? His overwhelming opinion was based on the fact that ground shifting was common in the Midwest.
I'm no cartographer, but
Look, I slept through most of geography. Okay, I just want you to know. I slept through most of geography. But even I know Oklahoma is not in the Midwest. So I'm speaking to the fact that it's a copy and paste error. You know, and as soon as I'm like, Oklahoma's not in the mid, and so I write that down, and then I begin to look, and I think he's going to have all of this supporting. You know, you've got 18 inches of topsoil, you got 36 inches of bedrock. The bedrock is primarily made out of limestone, and this is the topographical map. And if you take a look at this, you can see this little circle right here, and you know we're going to see a high pressure system, and you're going to. I mean, I was expecting some freaking information. Like some real, oh my God, I can't believe I ever thought a fire truck could do this to it. And it's clearly ground shifting. But that is not what I got. No. I got that ground shifting is common in the Midwest. And so I get after it. I mean, obviously, and then there's other things. I was like, please show me one shred of evidence other than this joker's opinion that it was ground shifting. You have not proven anything. You haven't looked at my data. And I ask all of these sorts of questions. Where else have you noticed ground shifting other than the driveway because you think it would manifest there? Is there ground shifting anywhere in the street? Did you notice ground shifting and any other cracks prevalent in any of the other driveways to state that this area, this tectonic area, you know, has been affected? Do you know what I'm saying? You have no shred of proof other than I believe that it's ground shifting because that's the most, you know, here you go. Here's your reason. This is what it could be. And I'm not saying that part of the cracks in there might not have been due to some sort of ground shifting. But what I do know is the picture of a fire truck that I sent to them. He goes, well, the crack was in a different place than where I saw the fire truck parked. And I was like, I cannot, Brent, I was so infuriated at that point. I said, the point of the picture is to prove that a fire truck was there. I did not plot its frickin' movements.
Right.
No idea. The point is there was, in fact, a fire truck here. See right here? Right. And the point is that said fire truck, I went after, and I called my buddy who's a firefighter in the city of Irving. And I said, how much do those trucks weigh? He goes, I don't know. Let me look it up. So he looks it up. He goes, well, the truck that I'm looking at here has a dry weight of about 40,000 pounds and a wet weight with equipment and water on it of about 60,000 pounds. And I said, thank you, Brent. And so my buddy's name is actually Brent. His name's my buddy's. I went to high school with him. He's a firefighter, and he sent me like a PDF document. And so I add this PDF document to my report. Then I decided to look up concrete tensile strength. Now you would think at some level maybe the engineer might have looked these elements up, but he did not do that. And what that thing is rated for, what that driveway, specifically that driveway is rated for, is about 8,000 pounds per square inch. That's what that driveway can handle, and we were putting about 40,000, because remember, the truck doesn't spread all the way out. It sits, as it rolls, it's isolated to the points on which it sits on the driveway. I'm sitting here go, where is your data?
Right.
Where is this?
Well,
now, this is still denied. It still got denied. So, I mean, it's not like I have a
right. Yeah, dude. And that's another thing that I kind of, as you were talking, I'm thinking for folks listening in, you know, these things aren't silver bullets. But as it relates to the credibility of what we're doing, whether it be public adjusters, contractors, and the like, it's at the end of the day, read the damn thing, and rub your good common sense brain cells together, and just read it, and ask a ton of questions. And it goes, you're talking about tensile strength and all that. What you're talking about is going through reading. You extrapolated one finding from that report that caught you, and you're like, you just reverse engineered it, no pun intended. It's like, well, how did he arrive at that? Ground shifting. Well, there's a freaking 60,000-pound truck on this, piece of concrete over here. Is it feasible or reasonable that, hey, maybe that truck could have effed up the driveway? Well, to any normal, rational person that knows how to exhibit a bit of logic is going to go, yeah, Jeremy, that seems reasonable. Newsflash, people, we're not dealing with reasonable people. So, point of my little commentary is there's no silver bullets here, but this is the way that we should behave when we're dealing with these types of things. You got to think through it sort of unemotionally and critically, and unpack it, and ask questions that show up for you. There is no dumb question when you're going through something like that. It's just not. You write them down, plot them out, and reposition your argument. Now, one thing I'll say is, and this is, I'm going to bounce the ball back to you, Jeremy, is, there's essentially two scenarios that you end up in. You either get brought into the claim after Eddie Engineer's already been out there, in which case you can't control that narrative. What's done is done. On the other hand, you're involved in the claim leading up to Eddie Engineer coming out, right? So in one breath, maybe the dude or the gal, whatever, they've already been there. In the other scenario, you actually have the opportunity to be present or get questions answered beforehand. So with that being said, one question that I think is really important is, why are they going? Why?
To deny the claim. There's only one reason that they could go out there, is so that they have plausible deniability to deny the claim. That's the only.
While we know that, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't negate the importance of asking the adjuster that. Because I'm thinking down the road, if this thing gets litigated, why did they tell you that ABC Engineering needs to come out? Is the answer, we need to determine causation? Well, that's interesting. As far as we can see, you guys have already extended coverage. So are we now trying to go back on what we've already agreed on? Is it causation? Is it, the engineer is going out there to determine causation and perhaps repairability? See, depending on the answer that you get from the carrier as to why this other party is being introduced to the claim, I think is important, because it opens the door for about 150 other questions that need to get asked before that engineer ever shows up at the house, right? And that stuff, I think my point ultimately is asking the right questions and then following up those questions. You're going to get answers from the carrier, and then following up those answers with even more questions. So that way, by the time you show up to that meeting, then you kind of hit the repeat button. So I'm going to pause there, because it's sort of like the lead up to the engineer meeting, and then sort of how to conduct yourself on an engineer meeting. Again, we could probably talk about this stuff for 6 hours, but I want to give it back to you. Like, what do you think?
I mean, you said something. So the point here is often the engineer is going to come out there and do his thing, and he's going to find what he's going to find. And you swaying an engineer's opinion is usually a fool's errand. Okay, so you can, but what isn't a fool's errand is to ask the carrier, what's your goal here?
Right.
I mean, have I not provided you enough documentation to extend coverage? I mean, you've extended a lot more coverage on a lot less documentation. What is it about this that you're wanting to do that? So I would definitely ask. And then the other thing that you can do is ask for the CV of the engineer and see what his qualifications and
Yeah,
licensing
yeah.
standards are? You know,
Yeah.
those are all good questions that you can ask. Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's like okay, so you've decided you need an engineer out here. Clearly, that didn't just pop into your head. This isn't, you know, some impulsive decision. So answer me this: who are you sending out? Whenever I ask that question, the vast majority of the time, the adjuster has no idea. So, and which again, because I could just drone on, but it's like, okay, so you decided, or you came to the conclusion an engineer is required, but you don't even have a vendor in mind, which tells me that you have no idea. You're not even hiring an engineer for a particular purpose on a particular claim. You're just fucking hiring somebody. You're literally throwing it against the wall. You know what I mean? It's not specialized. There's no. I always say that they're shooting with a musket, not a laser. There's no particular desired end game, and I think the arbitrary nature of how they go about it just proves what you said about 10, 15 minutes ago, which is they're sending them out there to write a bogus report. And my goal with the adjuster leading up to that is to get all this memorialized and get it on record. When I asked you these 35 questions, these were your answers. Please confirm. You know, again, does it change the trajectory of the claim? Does Allstate or pick an insurance company? Do they pick up the phone and call me back and say, hey, Brent, you know what? We're not going to send out the engineer. No, that's never happened. But I'll tell you what, by the time I get on site with that engineer, I ask them the question, why are you here? I always start with that. Why are you here?
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice day. Where you're coming from. Cool. You know, whatever. Get through the niceties.
What
are
you asking for? Yeah. I mean, what are you here for? What are your
specifically? What did the carrier instruct you to do today? And what's interesting is those answers vary, dude.
They really do.
You know,
you're right about that.
I mean, it's like sometimes they're like, oh well, I'm here to do an inspection. And I'll just play the game. What inspection for what? And I, you know, again, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I do. It's like, what are you inspecting? Well, you know, I'm kind of role playing real conversations. Well, storm damage on the roof. They sent you out to confirm if there's storm damage? Why'd they do that? Well, that's all it says. And I've literally had engineers like turn their little sheet around and be like, well, that's literally what it says, inspection for storm damage. Oh, well, that's interesting. The carrier's already extended coverage.
Right. And you know, and
you know what I mean?
And the engineer's report will look really professional. They'll like go get a site survey and they'll trace the site survey on it and they'll have nice aerial photos and it'll look like they went to all of this effort when in fact they really did not. And it looks it's
anyway.
Anyway, I mean, you know, the point is that what I would like to encourage everyone to do when you come up across, look, Brent is right. We're not going to have any silver bullets. The driveway claim that I was speaking about, I lost. It doesn't matter, but I wrote a narrative. I turned in documentation, and as it pertains to being able to be litigated, the very fact that the engineer cannot refute the data that I've been given or that he took it into consideration is what's going to tear it apart in court. Generally, at least that's my intention, and that's why I'm providing the attorney. It's like you may not have done your job as an engineer, but I sure as hell did my job as an adjuster, and I looked this stuff up, and I have provided data for them to make real coverage decisions, and in fact, they're making a negative coverage decision on less information than I'm giving them to make a positive coverage decision, and that is really what my goal is here, is remember, I want to be clear, as a public adjuster, my job is to prove the loss. My goal is to get an increase, but my job is to prove the loss. And so as it pertains to that, nothing gets you out of doing your job. So you need to get in there. You need to prove the loss. You need to make it a part of the record, get it submitted with documentation, and turn that thing in and and if it comes down to a judge making a decision on whether or not it was ground shifting or a spaceship landed on it, I don't know. Whatever that case may be, if we have to go to court, you want to make sure that you have fulfilled your due diligence in refuting that report with your own expert opinion for whatever it may or may not have, for whatever weight it may or may not have, and then you've also shown a level of research, and that's the thing juries are going to love.
You need to everything you do needs to be above reproach.
It needs to, well, you need to just do your job in its entirety and quit crossing your fingers and hoping things fall your way.
You know, if there is a takeaway from this, this sort of dialogue, it's like, look, ladies and gentlemen, hope is not a strategy.
That's correct.
Like, you know, do your due diligence. Don't be a bystander to a process that it's quite frankly kind of bullshit, right? Like, when the engineer gets brought up, you know, like it's a dirty word. You know, remember, not all of them are bad. Not all reports are garbage, but you can't control what they come out and do. What we can control is how accountable we hold them, how well we document it, and the homework that we ultimately do. One last thing that I had written down, I mean, we can take this puppy wherever you want to go with it, but one last thing that I wrote down is the nuance of sort of educating the engineer. That might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but in my experience going on more engineer meetings than I care to admit, a lot of them really don't know why the fuck they're there. Or at least the reason that they're there is, you know, we already talked about it. It's kind of skewed. Like they literally, they're there to come out, do their thing, take their pictures, write their, and quite literally write their report on what they think is going on, right? And as it pertains to these storm claims, it's like, you know, they come out, they take their pictures, and they literally write what they see. Hey, maybe there was some wind, maybe there wasn't. The shingles felt pretty pliable. You know, there's wear and tear on the front, there's wear and tear on the back, there's granular loss. You know, most of it doesn't look like it was from wind. I found a couple wind damaged shingles, and, you know, I mean, we've all read enough of them, so I don't need to drone on. But what's interesting is some of these guys, and I've witnessed this firsthand, they don't realize that report is going to be taken and contorted and leveraged in such a way that homeowner is more than likely not going to be able to get a viable repair as a result. And so to get to, you know, going around the barn to get to the hay, to get to the point here is that I've taken the time to explain to the engineer in context, what's going to happen with this report. And I explain to them in context why I'm asking all of the questions I'm asking. For example, when they're up there and there's a bunch of busted shingles, sealant and mat transfer, and, you know, wind-blown debris on the sealant strips and all this other rigmarole, I ask them, you think that's wind damage? Nah, that looks like this or that. And then I'll ask them, do you think that the condition of that shingle could have been exacerbated by a windstorm? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, cool. You know, and they'll talk about the zippering and the racking and the installation of this, and this is incorrect. Okay, great. We're not here to talk about any of that. Is there wind damage on the roof? Yes, no, maybe. Awesome. Would you repair 97 shingles on this roof? Would you? Why are you here? Is there damage? Yes. Was there damage on this roof caused by wind? Yes. And the 5 people that were up here prior to you agreed. You know, 3 ladder guys, Seek now, the desk adjuster, everybody, me, the homeowner, the contractor, we all agree that there's damage on this roof. So my question to you is, if this was your house and you were looking at a roofer that wanted to come up here and do 97 individual shingle repairs on this 25 square roof, how would you feel about that? The conversation gets interesting. It does.
It really does. I mean, and that's an excellent point. And I just want to, and I'll bookend it with this right here. I realize we got some extracurricular activity going here after the round is over, but I will say, I think that those are genius questions to ask. Okay, if you're not, you need to ask those questions, I think. And what I said at the beginning, trying to redirect an engineer or trying to convince him of one thing or the other is pretty much a fool's errand. But what is not a fool's errand is asking them the questions that Brent had. So rewind this podcast and go write those questions down, because that's some of the best advice as far as how to handle an engineers meeting I've ever heard. Maybe we can get those in the comments. I'm not making any promises, but those are some really solid questions that you need to be asking engineers for sure.
Depends on how many cuss words I have to edit out.
I thought I did all right on that one. I didn't get too carried away. Oh.
So round 3, what do we got?
We are going to talk about surrounding yourself with a team of experts.
Okay. So a team of experts is super important. Mainly because that's what the carrier is doing now. That's what you're going to see, the behavior of the carrier. And I'm not doing it just to copy them. I am doing it because we got to be firing the same size bullets back and forth, right? And I don't mean to make everything sound like a fight, but as it pertains to proving a loss, you're going to have better proof than they do in order for them to look at your proof. And so assembling a team of experts around you, whether you want to bring them in-house or whether you want to outsource them, is something you need to do. Because remember, if you're a public adjuster and you're listening to this, remember your expertise is in policy. It's not in flooring. It's not in cabinet repair. It's not in roofing. And I don't care who you've worked for. Your role in this claim is as an adjuster. So your expertise as it pertains to anything else is not only a conflict, but it's irrelevant. And so you're going to have to get these team of experts. And so that is one of the things that I've realized in dealing with engineers and bad engineers reports is actually having a team of experts that you work with. And so, Brent, are there some that you work with on a regular basis? I know I've got a few that I like, but go ahead.
I would throw them into like different categories. First of all, I think the word expert is so overplayed. And second of all, as a public adjuster and someone that's been in the claims space for, I guess about 5 years, I feel like I've been in it for 20, but I have fallen victim to thinking I know. I know this. I know that. I know this to be true. And I guess better put, I have fallen victim to thinking that my opinion actually means anything. And I've sort of adopted this little phrase of, it's not about what you think you know, it's about what you can prove. And it doesn't matter if you call 5 other roofers, 5 other sales reps, 5 other public adjusters, and everybody high fives you and says, yeah, man, I mean, you're right. I can't believe they're not paying for that. No one gives a shit. So, do I have some guys that I work with? Yes. My brain trust. There's a couple public adjusters that I talk to very frequently that are they've forgotten more about policy than I've ever learned. I call them, I pick their brains. Sometimes we run into these policy conundrums that's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? How the hell does this work? I think that's really important as it relates to understanding things and in turn framing an argument. As I get into more water and fire and, all these different situations, it's like, yeah, I've got a couple flooring guys up my sleeve that I'll call. I've run into a different type of finish in a house. It's like, I don't know shit about this. Like, I need to call somebody, But yeah, like there's in each one of those little categories, cabinets and flooring and countertops and roofing and siding and gutters and, I remember when I did my first slate claim, I didn't know a freaking thing about slate. I can go read some stuff on Google and write a nice email, but no one cares about my opinion. So the short answer is yes, there's a handful of folks that contribute to my work product on a daily basis. I can't imagine where I'd be without them. But I think more importantly is understanding how to leverage them. there are certain things that need to be on someone else's letterhead. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Absolutely. You've got to have somebody else that is corroborating your opinion. Absolutely.
And and again, like, I'm not ashamed to admit it, because you're trying to figure it out, and what what cord to pull when, or what thread to pull when. It's like, these folks, these relationships that you have with these experts or people that specialize in like certain things, when you lean on them, I think it's important as a public adjuster, or it doesn't matter what part of the process, claim management process you're in. You want to make sure that when you're asking for help, that you make it easy for them to help you. Don't get it twisted. It's like, we have a job to do. We need to be resourceful, and when we need someone to help us out or corroborate something, have your shit organized. Your photos. Make sure that you're able to give the people that you're asking to do you a favor or take a look at something. Make sure you have your stuff dialed in. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, it's nothing like, it's like hiring someone to come paint a room, and your room is packed from floor to ceiling of shit. And they show up with their paintbrush and their can of paint, and they look at you like, well, what do you want me to do with this? You know what I mean? So I think as a professional courtesy, the experts are super important. You got to know when and where to leverage them. You got to know when and where you need something on their letterhead. And last but not least, it's like, make sure you're professional about it. When you lean on these folks, you want them to be willing to help, not palm to forehead when they answer your call. That's my spiel on experts. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I just want to say, as my probably last time to talk here as far as this portion goes, Brent's 100% right. Okay, I'm not going to reiterate anything he said. Fortunately, this is recorded, and you go back and listen, because everything he said there was just absolute claims handling gold. Okay, so number one, the only other thing that I would add is that the experts that I would tell you to go develop a relationship with, go find, there's nothing wrong with garnering some goodwill out of some people, so that when you need an expert that doesn't really have a dog in the hunt as far as this particular claim goes, having that expert who doesn't have any kind of conflict or financial gain to realize here, that's the important thing. And one person I would tell every public adjuster to have some kind of relationship with is an attorney that's in the state that you're working in. You need to have a buddy.
I left that out. Yeah, I mean, legal.
You need to have an attorney. So go develop that relationship. The second one that I would tell you that you would need is a water mitigation expert that is mold and hazardous materials certified. So mold, asbestos, lead paint, any of that kind of stuff. You want to get somebody that understands that. That also understands the claims process and the documentation required for a mitigation situation. So being that I like to work on fires and interior water losses, those are my favorite things to work on. Those experts are really, really key. It is more difficult to find someone when you get into the exterior of the home, but depending on your location, if you're down in Florida, you're going to deal with a ton of stucco, and the question is it synthetic stucco or is it actual real masonry stucco? So you can get the EFHO stuff that's synthetic stucco, or you can get the real masonry stuff. And so understanding how those repairs work, what it takes to get that, you want to have somebody else's opinion other than the Xactimate macro you downloaded last night to tell you how to estimate
right.
it. You know what I mean? You're going to have a little bit more than that, and let them direct you as far as protocol and how to estimate it goes, and those are the main ones that I would have in my back pocket when I am walking into the large losses that I'm talking about.
Right.
I mean, everybody in Texas today is completely gun shy as we prepare for Christmas and all of this kind of stuff. We've got I'm not kidding you.
12 degrees today.
It's 12 degrees in Dallas, Texas today. And Brent and I were talking earlier this morning. Was it like 30 or 29 or something like that. So it's colder here than it is in Baltimore, Maryland right now. And Texas can do that. I mean, I have no idea how we can get the craziest weather, but the point is that we're all a little gun shy because the last time it got this cold here in Texas, it was billions of dollars worth of damage. I'm already getting reports of people's power being out. And so, and we warm up Christmas morning. It'll be like around noon is when everything is going to begin to drip thaw out, and we're going to start seeing pipes burst everywhere. And I know that we're going to see an influx of claims just because of the weather today. I know that that's what we're going to see. And these experts that are ready to go, and make sure, guys, if you're going to be dealing with an influx of claims, documentation is everything. Most of the time, the carrier's not really saying no. They're saying, show me more. Show me more information. And so don't get discouraged. Hang in there. These engineers' reports are difficult, but the best thing that you can have is experts in your back pocket to handle these claims. And that is important to put a team around you.
I wanted to add that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Donna.
I wanted to add that other PAs that you know and trust are also a great resource if you just to bounce things off of, which is what you and Jeremy do. Also,
that's invaluable to me, by the way. I just want to thank you, Donna, for bringing that up.
Yes, she literally stole my thunder. I was just about to freaking say that, I swear. It's like one of the other most simple pieces of advice. Donna literally stole it. I was just going to say, sometimes just another set of eyes. Another set of eyes can be your expert. In certain situations, just like you just need,
Mentor
Donna,
up.
it's brilliant. Yep.
Yeah, mentor up. I mean,
and also those people can help you find those other experts.
They really can.
Yeah.
I mean, birds of a feather and all that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so Brent had mentioned have a mentor, and I so appreciate the mentors in my life. I mean, shout out to Vince Perri, shout out to you, Brent. You guys, just the people that I know that I can pick up the phone. To pick up the phone and call. Steve Patrick is another one that really comes to mind too. That is constantly always there. And if you happen to be so fortunate as to have a personal relationship with Steve Patrick, you know what I'm talking about. You happen to know that guy is not only going to give you a good answer, he's going to tell you how to handle it and how to handle it like a pro. You know what I mean? Yep. That guy is just absolutely unbelievable. Can't say enough of good things. Maybe Brent and I need to have Steve on the Rumble at some point in time. You think we could get him?
Oh, that would be a freaking blast, man. That would be so fun.
It really
would.
Would
be so fun.
I think he'd have Brent and I on the mat in the first round. I think we would just have to ring the bell. TKO. I think I get knocked out the first punch. So, but guys, thank you so much, Donna. Once again, I really appreciate all of your efforts. She's been our producer. Brent, man, I cannot say enough about you and how awesome you are. I really, really appreciate it.
Right back at you, big dog.
So, we will be back with another show, guys. If you're listening to this and you like it, Brent and I are completely open to topics that you guys want discussed. We're probably going to try to start working in some time in the show to do some questions and all of that kind of stuff. But other than that, guys, we are really glad that you've taken some time to listen to us. I hope that you guys all had a Merry Christmas. By the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be come and gone. I hope you've had a great Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year, and you've got 2023 kicked off with a bang. Again, we will see you on the next one.